Hello and welcome to Classically Imperfect, an organization dedicated to providing mental health and wellness resources to young classical musicians. I'm Mary Elizalde, one of the co-founders and the executive director, and today I'm joined by Juan Florez, a violinist and senior at the University of Florida. Today we'll be discussing the transition from high school to college as a musician. Hi Juan, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, Mary. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Can you tell us a little bit about your musical background and how you got involved in classical music?
Sure. Yeah. I started when I was quite young. I remember starting violin when I was three, almost four. Um, and then I kind of started exploring other instruments as I got older. So soon after I started piano, when I was around five. Um, and then I got into some classical percussion, as well as Latin percussion. I grew up in Miami, so of
Mm.
course it's all over the place. Um, so I got into that as well. I taught myself some sort of basic guitar on YouTube, and just recently I've started learning viola as well, just to get a different perspective within the string section. And I've also started studying orchestral conducting. So I guess just trying to diversify as much as possible.
Yeah, it's good to learn, especially viola when you're a violinist because it's so competitive. And there's like, I feel like there's a viola
Yeah,
stage like everywhere. Like I just don't see
definitely.
that many violas, and I'm seeing a lot more violinists turn to viola, which is
Yeah,
controversial, but it's a good thing. We need more violas.
definitely. Yeah, I've never known why viola is just not the most popular instrument to pick up when you're little, maybe because it's a
Mm.
little clunky.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the technique is, with minor differences in finger spacing, the technique is essentially the same.
Mm.
Um, and it gives you a whole different perspective, especially, using your ear on an ensemble. So I'm quite enjoying it. I think it's pretty fun.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what your college audition process looked like? I know this time is very challenging for a lot of musicians, and a lot of people at Classically Imperfect just finished pre-screenings and are now entering like college, actual real in-person college auditions. How was your process like?
Yeah, it was certainly tough. I mean, it was, I'd say some of the toughest months of my life, as it tends to be for most young musicians. Um, and I will say it was different than I expected, purely because of COVID. Um, and I think that came with a lot of challenges and in some ways some relief, as weird as it sounds, psychological, but also financial,
Mm.
because the auditions were not in person. They didn't allow us to audition in person.
Mm.
Um, and so that kind of uh, negated the worry of, all right, I have to buy flights, I have to buy hotels, I have to, prepare myself to stand in front of all of these panels with these, pretty intimidating people. Um, and so the actual experience of, okay, I'm about to play my audition, um, was was quite different. And I remember being somewhat relaxed while actually recording, just because I was here. I was recording in this room, um, and just going through that. But the application process itself, of course, was super scary. It's very foreign. Um, and I was never I didn't have guidance. I just kind of stepped into this world, um, of, okay, how does a pre-screen work? There's a first round, there's a second round. Okay, but what happens if I pass one, don't pass the other? Um, and so yeah, just a lot of new challenges. And then when placed within the context of COVID being a thing, um, it was pretty taxing. It was pretty taxing. So by the end of it, I was kind of gassed out. But um, yeah, so I never had the sort of traditional audition process experience, if you will.
Yeah. So were all of your auditions kind of all recorded, or were there like any Zoom options?
I did all of mine were recorded.
Mm.
Um, I did interviews through Zoom. Um, the interviews were um, as in person as they could have been. Um, and that was me. I found myself a little comfortable with that, just because I feel okay speaking with others. Um, but yeah, every audition I did was recorded. Um, so the experience of that was kind of weird, I guess. It was unique.
Yeah. How did you, since my question was live audition, but you didn't have a live audition, how did you mentally prepare
Mhm.
for your recordings? Because I know a lot of musicians struggle with recording. Like me personally, it takes me hours to record and like
Yeah,
when there's no camera, I'm completely fine. But when there's a camera, it's just like insane. And at my high school, we had to record ourselves playing like full pieces with like a metronome track so that they can put together the video. And I just remember it took me forever. And like, how did you
yeah,
handle that much recording?
yeah. The I guess fear, because I it was uh scary. The fear of playing in front of others was not there, but the fear of playing in front of myself was.
Mhm.
And the recording process was extremely difficult. It was really taxing. Um because it felt like it was me versus me,
Mhm.
right? And as we do all the time as musicians, right? We sit in practice rooms endlessly, and it's just us against our own thoughts. Um, and I remember it was super strange where I take one and I'd play through it, and I'm a little jittery and kind of unsure. I'd listen back and I'm like, okay, that this is okay. The more times I'd record, the worse it would get,
Mhm.
just consistently. And you could see, if you put the takes back to back, you could hear it and see it getting worse. My uh, tone, my sort of sounding point, my left and right hand technique, all of it was just going down. And it was frustrating. It was extremely frustrating.
Mhm.
Um, and I had, again, I was never, uh, I guess, taught to approach the mentality of this situation of, yeah, you're not going to audition for folks, but you're going to record yourself, and this is going to take days.
Mhm.
It's days of just like the most personal internal struggle that we have as musicians, which is that self-judgment that we get from this feedback that we give ourselves. Um, so it was really, really challenging. And I guess in a way it put me down for a bit, um, because it wasn't something that I was prepared for.
Mhm.
Um, so I didn't know how to handle it. Maybe like how I do now after, 4 years of an intense study and sort of self-reciprocating feedback. So yeah, the recording process was super, super tough.
Yeah, and I think a lot of musicians aren't really taught how to record or when they should record. Like me personally, before the pandemic and before COVID, I never recorded myself. But I think it's something
Right.
that's pretty much necessary for your growth to like hear yourself and really understand what you're playing right. Because most of the time when you're practicing, you don't realize what you're playing wrong until you step
Mm,
into me, for example, until I step into my lesson and my teacher tells me. But
yep.
that can also like it can also recording can also help with that. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah. So how was the
Definitely.
transition? I know this is was your transition from high school to college, it was also completely like online, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was completely online, and it was kind of weird because of COVID,
Yeah.
where it wasn't a smooth transition from, end of high school to beginning of college. I ended high school and I had recorded my auditions and I had gotten into certain places and not gotten into certain places. Um, and I chose the University of Florida for several reasons. Um, and I'm extremely happy that I did. But I wasn't able to join violin studio in the fall semester. So I essentially did a semester of no studio, right? I had music theory here, literally on this desk, on this laptop, and it's like 8:30 in the morning.
Mm.
Um, oral skills, all these things. And it was only in the spring, um, after the sort of um, after COVID was starting to become a little more manageable, um, where I was actually in person in the studio.
Mhm.
And then I moved up to Gainesville to start that. Um, so yeah, the transition was again super bizarre, and I remember I remember over the course of fall semester, say from August to December, I would text my mom photos of these really cool spots on campus, right? Of the student union building and of one of our concert halls and then the other concert hall, what our practice rooms look like. And I would text them to her and I'd be like, man, I really wish I was there.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, at least here it was uh quite lonely, and I'm a student in this whole, student life, but the environment of student life is non-existent. I'm in this room, right? Um, so it was pretty challenging. And then of course getting there in the spring and actually starting with my violin professor. Uh was another transition in and of itself because I took that semester of, I'm still practicing and practicing consistently, but not with the same intensity as one does when they're actually studying in violin studio, right, at the collegiate level.
Mhm.
Um, and so I had to kind of flip the switch in my brain of, okay, I have to get used to the theory and the aural and orchestra and chamber and all of the the college things and that a music student does. But I also have to carve out these, 3.5 hours a day for practice because I'm in studio for
Mm.
real this time.
Mhm.
Um, and that came with its, a whole host of challenges, um, mentally and also just navigating life of, okay, I am forced to improve my time management now.
Mhm.
If I don't make this time, this daily time, I'm in trouble, right?
Mhm.
Um, so, and I eventually got the hang of it, but there was a period of, maybe a month and a half or so where I was a bit lost, right? I remember walking 35 or 40 minutes to the building for orchestra rehearsal, and I had my stand. We had to bring our own stands. Um, I had my music, my backpack, my violin, and I was like skateboarding down campus because I didn't know how the buses worked. So I'm just kind of like with an army pack of stuff. Um, and so yeah, I was certainly a little lost in several ways, but I eventually got my footing. So
And so you were basically like a semester behind and you had to catch up within. So that must have been like, so how long did it take you to adjust to that?
yeah, yeah. It certainly took a while. Um, I was a semester behind in the actual violin studio class.
Mhm.
Um, but I was sort of caught up on everything else, right? On all of the other music school requirements. Um, and so, although I was a semester behind in the studio, she still held me to a level as if I weren't behind,
Mhm.
right? So she didn't change the bar for me. And now looking back on it, I am grateful
Mhm.
that she pushed me as much as she did,
Mhm.
um, because it kind of forced me to step into this place kind of lost, and it's like I'm thrown into the fire. And so I reacted in certain ways that helped me in managing those types of situations. Um, yeah, I mean, it took several months for sure. It took several months, almost a full semester of just kind of making mistakes and kind of, I don't know, looking around as like, can anyone help me?
Mhm.
Um, to then really land. as one would like to. And throughout that semester, of course, I was getting support from her, and from the folks in studio, from the undergraduate students, as much as I was from the graduate students, from the masters and doctorate folks. Um, so yeah, I learned to rely on others a little bit, and maybe the most helpful thing, the biggest piece of advice that I give to freshmen that I learned in that situation of trying to adjust was to find my tribe, right? I found my tribe and the people that were willing to help me in this transition.
Mhm.
Um, which, in my case, it was a whole bunch of violinists, right?
Mhm.
Um, in other folks' case, I've seen, it's a bunch of people who have nothing to do with their studios. Um, so yeah, as difficult as it was, I did learn to find my tribe and kind of ask for help.
Yeah. Do you think it eventually like helped you in the end with like time management or other important skills?
100%, 100%. Yeah. I there's a note in my phone that it's just titled itinerary, and I made it at the end of that second semester where I was kind of finally, getting my footing and adjusting.
Mhm.
And since then, I'm to this day, I literally did this last night. Um, I make my itinerary for the following day, and to the minute, right? And it helped me so much, even to the point where, I'd have to walk from the music building to this little market on campus to get my lunch. And some days were just so absurdly hectic, that I wouldn't have time to eat. And so I'd time my walk from the music building to the market, and it's like, okay, almost 5 minutes. That's how much it takes to get from here and then back. Okay, almost 10 minutes. I can just eat my lunch as I walk back. And so I put that in my itinerary. Um, and it's just those little things, little ways to optimize my time and my energy usage, um, that I think were born out of necessity of me kind of just being thrown into the fire. Um, that otherwise I may not be using those strategies right now, um, which I now I can't live without. So
Yeah, definitely. I think COVID also helped a bunch of people like really prioritize their time. Like before COVID, I never used my calendar, but now like you said,
yeah,
I use it every day for everything. I literally used it right before this meeting, like planning out
yeah,
little thing. And it's so important as a musician to have a schedule to when to practice, when to do homework, and when to like have fun at the same time. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
What's something you wish your program taught you or you wish you knew about about music at a university level?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I wish my home program, as grateful as I am to my home program, which my music project, this really large, um, really impactful El Sistema program in Miami. Um, I come from them, but of course there are holes to
Mhm.
fill,
Yeah, definitely.
in preparation, and I hate to say it, but I feel like it's normal in music programs. It's just how it is. Um, I wish they had sort of gotten me into the regiment of what this entails. Um, because music school is so incredibly different, than studying any other field. It's not even close,
Mhm.
right? And to this day, right? Even in my senior year, I drive to campus and it's 11:45, it's 12, right? Maybe a little past midnight too. And I'm walking up and I'm holding my concerto in one hand and I'm kind of my violin in the other. Um, and as I'm walking into the music building, there's folks walking the other way and they're walking off campus. And they're going across the street to a club, right? Or they're leaving the study library to go back home.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just the music world and everything else. It's really not even close. And
Mhm.
I wish that I would have just learned that before. Um, Again, just so I could walk in with a little more mental preparation. Um, in music, students have the that sort of weird but true reputation of you walk past a practice room and like half of the practice rooms are filled, but they're all people sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're sleeping for a reason. We have like 100 things to do,
Yeah.
right? It's not just sit down and study.
Mhm.
Um, you're challenging yourself to such a level um that it just doesn't compare. And I didn't fully grasp how much of a challenge that was
Mhm.
before, just because it was never introduced to me at any point. Um, so I certainly wish that would have been part of my um, pre-collegiate learning in my program. Um, and you asked me a second part to the question, but I'm forgetting it.
I think it was just something that you wish you knew about music at a university level, like that your program taught you, or like how youth orchestras, you have like maybe you're in max one chamber group and like you have orchestra and that's pretty
Mm,
much it compared to like university.
sure,
Like how was that?
definitely. Um, you're gonna be you're gonna be pulled in like 20 different directions all at the same time. Um, I think I'm currently in a position right now where that is the case. And uh, you know, to be clear, I am grateful, right? Because all of those different directions that I'm stretched in are all positive things, right? Um, but when this first started happening, I was like, I'm losing my mind. I have to prepare like 23 different pieces all for next week. Um, so yeah, especially at the collegiate level where you are taking music seriously and other people are aware of that. Um, you know, you are asked to play in orchestra, you are asked to play in chamber, you're asked to play in studio, you're asked to play on three different recitals, some contemporary music that you've never heard of. Um, you're asked to play professional things, right? The regional orchestra that I'm part of, or just gigs around town. And so the at the collegiate level, I guess to summarize all of that, one thing that I would have liked to have known is how to optimize my time and how to optimize what I do the minute that I sit in the practice room up until, 3 hours later. That actual process of, okay, let me sit down and learn, um, that would have been really, really nice to have worked on in some way. Um, there's I don't think there's such thing as practicing quickly that accomplishes nothing. Um, the idea is to practice smartly, right? It's to practice with intelligence and to practice with goals, um, and to just be able to develop this extreme focus for be it 3 hours or be it 20 minutes. Sometimes that's all I've had, right? I only have 20 minutes. Okay, these 20 minutes, I need to make every second count. Um, and that actual optimization process is really, I found it really difficult learning on my own, and I still am. Um, of okay, my bow stroke is off here, right? What is the smartest way to achieve a better spiccato, for example, um, in a way that also won't take me, my entire practice session because I have six other things to get to. Um, so the techniques, mentally speaking, that are involved with making practice extremely efficient. Um, that was just, again, that was never brought to me
Mhm.
here before college, and now I found it of paramount importance at the university level. So that would have been something really nice to have known going into it.
Yeah. I think a lot of these programs, they're great. Like I'm so grateful for Yola and like everything that they've done for me.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I feel like there's definitely some gaps, like you said, in every pretty much every music program. And it's not necessarily like a bad thing. It's just something that we need to really like hone in on and figure out how we can help in that sense. And at the same time, like these programs don't have they might not have the resources to help us at a collegiate level because maybe they're there's like different things going on in different orchestras and stuff. And but I think
Mhm.
it's really important to just like bring up the conversation to help other musicians who might be like wondering the same thing or like struggling with the same thing. um
Yep,
but yeah,
definitely.
do you have any advice for any current high school seniors who want to pursue music, like anything that wish or you wish you knew in like when you were a high school senior, like going to college and stuff like that?
Yeah, this is a really great question. So at the University of Florida, I'm an ambassador, and one of our roles is to help the incoming students on their audition process.
Mm,
Um, and so, we get literally hundreds of questions from high school seniors, from their parents,
mhm,
um, as to the process and how to best approach it. Um, so I think at the micro level, right? I like to separate into micro and macro. Um, at the sort of most detail oriented level, you know, you have your instrument and you're at the school and you're warming up in a practice room. Um, and of course you're like shaking, right? You're buzzing and just your heart is like beating out of your chest.
mhm,
Um, and it's a really, really difficult spot to be in because you know that you're going into a room to essentially be judged, right?
mhm,
Because that is what an audition is, right? You are judged and you are compared to against other folks who do what you do,
mhm,
right? Um, and so part of the advice that I give to these students that are literally about to walk into the room, um, don't the idea is not to play better than whoever else is going after you or whoever else has gone before you. The idea is to play your best,
mhm,
right? Put your blinders on, right? Just for a second, pretend that you're not auditioning against anyone else. Pretend that you're just walking into a room and you're just presenting yourself as, hey, this is me and this is my best playing, right? And I've found that that helps build up so much confidence and it helps, at least temporarily, remove this fear, this natural fear of judgment, right? You're just going in to be you and to demonstrate what you've worked hard on. Um, and so with that comes such a focus and such a concentration where, a lot of folks go in to do their audition and they're trying to play something as fast as possible, right? Well, why? Oh, I want it to be flashy. I want me to stand out, right? And look how fast I can play. That has nothing to do with it, right? They want to see you at your best, right? So frame it in that way. Be very individualistic with this sort of point in time that you're in, um, where you've developed your technique and you feel confident in yourself. Um, and so just show that. Just show that. Don't worry about what anyone else is doing. Be your best. Um, and it will be enough. I promise it will be enough. Um, I was taught that when I was quite young, and I've used it for literally my entire life. And I'm really lucky to say and a bit proud to say that it has gotten me to certain places. Of just being able to frame my confidence in a positive way right before walking into the room. Um, so I find that helps a lot of people. Um, and then on the macro level, you know, it's a really important moment in your life, of course, it's a really unique transition that not a lot of other people go through.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's I want to say that it's normal to feel these things, but of course it's not, right? It's not normal for you to be having like panic attacks. Although a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Um, but understand that if you feel that way, it is because you inherently know that it is important to you,
Mhm.
right? I wouldn't be, shaking and sweating all over my instrument if this wasn't of like absolute and complete importance. Um, and so similar to the other piece of advice, it's the same feeling, but just looking at it from a different angle. It's framing it differently. Um, and yeah, this is important. So let me enjoy it and let me apply myself as best as possible. Um, and if the audition goes well, great. You earned it, you worked for it. If it doesn't go well, that's okay. It's okay. I promise the world is not gonna end. Um, I've failed, I don't know how many auditions. I failed so many auditions. Um, but it started becoming a positive thing, or as positive as it can be, um, when I just started taking that failure and again just looking at it differently, right? It's not, man, I should have done this better. This audition was awful. I didn't play well. Okay, why? Right? Why? What happened? Right? So therefore, what are the necessary steps that I can take to make sure that the following one goes better? Um, and something that I started doing and I advise everyone to do um, after their auditions. And I did this in my audition. I sent in an email to all of the places that I sent my recording to. I would email each professor and I'd say, thanks for taking the time to listen. After you listen, can you just give me some feedback?
Mhm.
Right? It can be like a sentence, right? But give me something um, so that I can incorporate your perspective into what I'm doing, right? And that demonstrates so much of yourself in their eyes, right? It
Mhm.
it demonstrates, okay, this person understands that failure is normal, especially for musicians. They also understand it's so much a part of the process that in so many ways it is the actual process, right? The process of making mistakes. That's all musicians do. That's all they do. Um, and so of course, it puts you in their eyes as a willing and able learner. Uh, but of course, it kind of helps you build confidence in the long run, right?
Mhm.
Because you're incorporating all these perspectives and you're opening yourself to mistakes. And that's for the rest of your life, for the rest of your time as a musician, you will make mistakes. Um, so make them part of what you do rather than something to avoid. Um, and I found that's, you know, one of the most helpful and applicable pieces of advice that I've gotten.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um, so my final question for you is, do you think there are enough mental health resources in the classical music community?
not even close. Definitely not. I mean, you know, I can't name three.
Yeah.
I can name three. I can name yours, to be honest. Um, no, not at all. Especially within the context of how uh difficult what we do is and how taxing it is mentally, physically, and how much it touches every aspect of your life, right? If you have a, if I, well, I'll speak for myself. If I have a rough practice session, my whole day is like out the window. I'm
Yeah.
like, don't talk
Mhm.
to me. I'm miserable. Um, so no, absolutely not. And the closest uh that I've been to a resource like that, um, is one my tendonitis flared up once.
Mm,
This was, I think, the end of sophomore year.
mm,
Um, and I couldn't play. Now, luckily, it was at the end of the semester,
mm,
so it was, orchestra's ending, studios ending, etc. Um, and so I was talking to my studio teacher about it and just trying to figure it out. And I walk in like 2 days later, and there's posters all over the building of this like really funny cartoon with this bullet point of lists to kind of take care of yourself
mm,
physically
mm,
of, if something hurts, stop playing, right? If you feel inflammation, put some ice. And it's like, okay,
mhm.
got it.
Yeah.
Um, but is this like, was it this had to happen because I got hurt,
Mm,
right? This couldn't have happened before, or maybe some sort of seminar or introduction even to this kind of thing. It had to happen after I couldn't play.
yeah.
Um, so no, the resources are not there. And I think for the future of the space, um, especially with how we've finally gotten to a point where we're realizing how important um mental health is with life, but also especially at this crossroads of music and how challenging it is for the self. Um, I find it quite surprising that there is such an extreme lack of of resources. Um, which is, one of the several reasons I love what you're doing. Um, so no, certainly not. I hope that people like you change the space so that these things are at the forefront of what we do.
Yeah. Thank you for your kind words. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so thank you so much for joining us for this interview. And if you want to learn more about Classically Imperfect, make sure to click the link in our bio. Bye.